So we've been working for quite a while on this qualification. Or shall I say, I've done nothing but work on this since about September time last year. And it's so fantastic to hear some of the stuff that you guys have been doing, because it just links into all the stuff that we're trying to sort of include within the Workplace Health Champion qualifications. So we've worked in partnership with NCFE. They are now live on the Ofqual framework. So it is a recognised qualification that people would achieve. So we have two qualifications, the level 2 and the level 3. So what we're looking at really is the level 2 is an introduction into sort of the concept of the workplace health champion and what the role might be for that person, and what we're trying to do around getting activity up and running in the workplace. So the level 3 is more around the practical skills of that role, more in depth about how they might gather insight and research about what some of the workers might want, and what, you know, if they say they want a certain activity, are they actually going to attend that, and are we putting it on at the right day, the right time, and how that person might look to facilitate an activity as well. So they come out with on the level 3 with a qualification that includes sort of an activator role, not a qualified sports coach as such, but they've got the skills to facilitate an activity and help people progress and develop some of those skills. So the level 2, just a little bit more of an overview around sort of the learning outcomes. So looking at the workplace health, you know, what are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? So obviously, you know, some of the reasons of what we're trying to improve about absenteeism, you know, improving productivity, better engaged workforce, you know, and reducing sort of the number of sick leave days. We've got a bit of an introduction around factors affecting physical and mental health, all right, and the connection between the two as well. I'm a massive advocate for mental health first aid. I'm a mental health first aid tutor, and you talk about upskilling your staff. We've got just short of 60 staff now, and every member of the team has gone through mental health first aid training. So depending on the role, they might just have done a 4-hour awareness course, and then we've obviously got, I think there's 4 of us that are actual first aiders. So I think it's key that everybody, you know, has that full understanding. And on the back of that training, a lot of staff have come forward and sort of put their hand up and said, look, I'm really struggling, I need some help. So it has had some real positive outcomes from that. We'll look at some of the behaviour change principles as well, and how we can sort of influence some of those behaviour change. You know, what kind of nudges can we put in place in the workplace to encourage people to sort of start to change the behaviours, whether it's, you know, parking 10 minutes further away and having that extra time to walk, some of the ways that we can influence them taking part in activity. You know, if you say sport to some people, they'll run a mile, won't they? So what we're trying to do is make it easy, accessible, and that can be done in the workplace as well. Safeguarding adults as well. So it's not just around mental health, but other issues as well that people might be facing. I know somebody mentioned about bullying in the workplace. You know, if that comes to light, how do people deal with that? So we'll have a look at some of the different types of abuse that could come to light in conversation, how they might identify that, and what they might need to do to help that individual. All right, understanding how to plan physical activity. How would they put that in place? Where would they start with that? And then looking at how they measure the success. So it's not just about number of attendees, it's more about the impact to the individual, and obviously to the organisation itself. You know, are people more productive? Are they happier in the role? You know, are they engaging with other team members? You know, there's a whole host of things that we can look at when we measure that success. The level 3, so this is a little bit more advanced. We're going into a bit more detail around mental health conditions and how to identify them. And we also look at different ways that they can implement sort of the 5 ways to well-being within the workplace as well. Healthy eating, you know, how do we encourage more healthy eating options? And I know this is quite big on a lot of agendas, isn't it, at the minute? But, you know, just how do we, you know, and I suppose getting them to understand how many calories in certain food, how long would it take to burn off a Mars bar, for example. And I've just been training the tutors just to deliver this qualification. And when we start looking at some of the detail behind this, I'm quite a healthy person. I'm a swimming coach in my spare time. And even now, when you look at stuff like that, it's like, really? I'd have to run for an hour to burn off a Mars bar. It's like, wow. So it's just things like this that people get that understanding about. We'll look more into the research side, how they can actually do the research, depending on the workplace. You've got a transport company, not many staff would have access to emails, for example, so you wouldn't do an online survey. And it's how they can do that appropriate to each individual workplace. Workplace health campaigns, we'll have a look at national campaigns and how they can get things off the ground. So linking into a national campaign sometimes can be easier to kickstart some things that you're going to run in the workplace, and how they can sort of keep that going. What else have we got? Health and safety, obviously that's needed. So we'll look at what kind of things they might need to look for in the environment that they're going to run a physical activity session. Developing fundamentals of movement. Now this is more around, if somebody's not done any sport or physical activity for quite a while, we might need to go back to basics with some people, just looking at the balance, how they stand, that kind of thing, assessing their movement skills basically. So we'll give them a bit more of an insight into that and how they can develop that for participants. And then they have a go at actually delivering a physical activity, which is great because that's where the fun bit comes in, with all different types of equipment and things like that. So they get to share different ideas, they can come up with different games, think about their own environment and what would work well, what wouldn't work well. So they go back to their working environment with all these different resources up the sleeve. So the qualifications themselves, so the level 2 is unit 1, okay? So that's a 6 hour, so that's a 1 day training day. And then the level 3 comprises of the level 2, and then you've got your second unit, which is your second day. Now, on the top of those 2 days, between unit 1 and unit 2, they are asked to go away and do some actual homework and come back with completed tasks. And then there will be an assessment for them delivering a practical activity, which is your 3rd day. So level 2 is 1 day, and the level 3 in total is 3 days. They're not back to back. There will be sort of 3 to 4 weeks between each day. Obviously, we know that can, 3 days out of work can massively impact on people. So we've sort of tried to get it so it hasn't had that impact. We did try to build in with the qualification for the workplace health champions to come out with a level 1 mental health awareness qualification. We didn't manage to do it. So as part of the progression, and it's great that everybody's been talking about this, are some Ofqual regulated qualifications. So we have the funding for the level 2 and level 3 workplace health champions, but there's also on the table the optioned progression routes for those that want to invest that little bit extra to enhance the skills of the workplace health champions, or if there's other members of staff in your organisation. All right, as an example, we have spoken to some organisations that want to train workplace health champions, but then on the other side they want to put that little bit of investment into to develop mental health first aiders, so they've got that additional support for staff. And then, if people are getting more interested in delivering more sort of sport-specific activities, there's things like boxing for fitness, or they could go on to a sport-specific coaching course, football, for example. Or we've also got the level 2 award in multi-skills in developing sport. So that's where you can develop the sport-specific skills a little bit further. All right. And then obviously you've probably seen this before, to register interest. Obviously Adrian spoke a couple of weeks ago around the business health matters. So anything around the health screening or the qualification, then obviously you can register interest at that email address. And that's it from me.